everyone, welcome back. My name is Diana. This is my channel Bookish Di, and today I am doing my TBR for the Magical Readathon Autumn Equinox semester, as well as the new Releaseathon. So for folks who don't know, the Magical Readathon, which is co-hosted by G at the Book Roast, is a twice-a-year readathon that's centered on going to magic school. And so it's based right now in the secondary world that she's created, Aurelium, and you choose a career, and in the spring equinox you do one book per class, and that's just kind of like the basic level. You can take a lot of different classes, and then in the autumn equinox is getting more serious about your chosen career and getting a chance to dive in a little deeper in those classes. So each class has 3 levels. So the base level for each one is O, followed by Q, which is like the intermediate level, and then D, which is the advanced level. And then the new Releaseathon is a new readathon that I found out from Angela at Literature Science Alliance, as well as my friend Raya over at the Book Finch. And it's a bingo board style readathon. It is all about reading those 2022 releases that you haven't gotten to yet. So I've decided with my TBR for the Magical Readathon to kind of overlap as much as possible, and then have a couple of extra books to try and get a bingo blackout on normal mode. So let's get into it. I have a lot of books to talk about. For my Magical Readathon career, I chose Master of Elements, so that means I need to read 8 books in the month of August. To start off, I need a D in Elemental Studies. The first prompt for that is Element of Water, which is start a book with a drink, so like have a drink while you're reading a book. And for that, I decided to go with Dance with the Devil by Kit Roca. This is the final book in the so far in the Mercenary Librarians trilogy. This book follows Danny and Rafe, who are Rafe is with the group the Silver Devils, and Danny is one of our mercenary librarians, and they need to go undercover in the tech corps that rules future dystopian Atlanta. And it's a science fiction romance, so you know, kissing, romance is all involved. So this is a series that I've been really enjoying. It's been kind of my joy spot during the pandemic. I just really like how, even though it is technically a dystopia, it's a very hopeful thing. So one of the things I like about Danny and her group is they're very focused on making the situation better for the people around them. So they run this library, they, you know, digitize books, they rent out different resources to the community. They are basically doing community building, and I really like that. You know, shit's kind of awful right now, and reading something that is inherently hopeful is just really, really, really nice, and it makes me so happy. And for the new Releaseathon bingo card, this fits sequel. This is that series ender so far, as well as genre bender. So because it is a science fiction dystopian romance, I would count that as a genre bender. It is more than 2 genres, so it fits in my opinion. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's coming out August 16th, so I have a little bit of time before it releases. Next, for Elemental Studies, I need Q, which is Wind Redirection, which is point to a random book and then pick a book that's adjacent to it. And so I did that on my shelves, and I got Fire Becomes Her, which works out because it is a 22 release, and by Rosie Thor. This is a YA fantasy, and it is set in a 1920s inspired world, and it follows this young woman who has magic, or who wants the flair, which is like magic in this world. And Ingrid comes from a poor background, so she's trying to make connections, and she makes a deal with a senator to spy on his opposition, and things go from there. So Rosie Thor is a local author to me, and I found this book at a signing that she was doing, and it covers really beautiful. It sounded interesting, and it also counts for title without article, so no articles here, as well as LGBTQ rep. Ingrid is Aro Ace on the Aro Ace spectrum, and I know there are there's other queer rep in this book. So I haven't seen too many people talk about it, but it does definitely sound interesting. The last book for elemental studies is Wave Manipulation, and so that is a book with a sea setting, and so that was a little more difficult, but I actually did have a book for that, and that is In the Serpent's Wake by Rachel Hartman. This is the sequel to Tess of the Road, which is one of my favorite reads from the last few years, and this picks up on Tess's journey to find a world serpent, and she has to go on a sea trip along with Giacomo, who is her brother-in-law's brother. I think that still counts as a brother-in-law. A dragon, an explorer, and yeah, I had pre-ordered this and I hadn't gotten around to reading it because I was kind of trying to save it, but I think this is a good time to read it. I love Tess of the Road so much, and I'm so excited to find out what her journey is next. And I would say this definitely counts for sequel. So, and I think actually, yeah, so she also is in Canada. So this is a non-US author technically, so counts for a couple of different prompts. The next class that I need for the Magical Readathon is Shapeshifting, and I only need an O in that. So the prompt for O is formation wings, and that is wings on the cover. And so for that, I am doing An Unreliable Magic by Rinchi Pecco. This is the sequel to, I'm completely blanking on the title of the first book, but it is part of the 100 Names for Magic series, and it is set in a world kind of like ours, but there is magic, and the main character, Tala, is charged with protecting a prince from a realm that has been conquered by the Snow Queen, and they are trying to get it back. And this one, I'm counting it because the audiobook cover, which is how I'll be reading it, does have, you know, little butterflies or moths on the cover, so I'm counting it as wings. And this is also by a non-USA author. Rinchi Pecco lives in the Philippines, as well as LGBTQ rep, as well as sequel. So this one fits a couple of different things. I do have a backup in case this one doesn't work, but it won't count for the new Releaseathon, but I do have some other stuff with wings on my shelf somewhere. After that, I have Animal Studies, which I also only need an O in, and so that one is Study a Familiar, so read a book that has a familiar or animal companion, and for that I am choosing Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This follows a princess who is trying to free her sister from an abusive marriage, and I know there's a demonic chicken as well as a bone dog, so I'm counting that as familiar. And this one was also nice and short, which is great. I've heard nothing but good things about this. I'm also counting this as a host rec because Angela at Literature Science Alliance has been talking about how much she's loved this book since she's read it. So I think that does count. So yeah, this one I'm definitely looking forward to, especially because I'm like almost positive it's going to be on the Hugo ballot next year because the Hugo voters love T. Kingfisher. Next class is Astronomy, and this is Lilivay, read a book with L in the title. And so for this, I am planning on reading The Bruising of Kilwa by Nassim Jamina. This is a novella that is released by Tachyon Press, and it's by a Persian-American author, and it follows a physician who is a refugee with their brother and another refugee that they're caring for, trying to figure out the cause of a plague. So I had heard about this because Kay Tempest Bradford has been talking about it on Twitter, and definitely sounded interesting. And I really loved some of the other fiction that I've read from Tachyon Press, particularly The Four Profound Weaves, which is one of my favorite books from 2021. And it just sounded interesting, so I decided to put it on my TBR. And I would say this also counts for the new Releaseathon as book I had not heard about because I only found out about it relatively recently, as well as novella. And I also think this counts as disabled or neurodivergent author, but don't quote me on that. But it definitely counts for a couple of things on this bingo card. Following that, the last class that I need is Restoration, and This I need a cue in, so I need to read 2 books. So the first one is Object Restoration, which is a single object on the cover. So that is going to be The Final Strife by Sara El Arifi. This is a African and Arab inspired epic fantasy. It's the first in a series, and it follows 3 young women who are in 3 different classes, and the revolution and dealing with an empire and a change of power. And it definitely sounds interesting. The cover's really pretty. And for this, I'm counting it as BIPOC author, new to me author, as well as debut. So this also fits a number of different prompts. This one is chonky, so that is gonna be a potential stumbling block because it is almost 600 pages. Like, she's big. And then the last book that I need for the Magical Readathon is Enchanted Scroll Mending, which is the oldest book on my TBR. And for that, I am picking a book that I have owned since 2015 that is on my Reader on Hold TBR, and that is House of Shattered Wings by Aliette de Bodard. This is the first book in her Dominion of the Fallen series. And it's actually funny that this is on my TBR because I was talking on the last Stitch and Bitch, I was talking with Rachel, and she was saying that she kind of bounced off this series until she started reading the novellas. So I'm very interested to see how I feel about this book, particularly, like I said, I've had it since 2015. This is I had pre-ordered it way back when I was living in DC, so this has gone through a couple of big moves. So it's finally time, it's finally gonna happen, and I'll decide whether or not I want to continue with this series in one way or another. And then a couple of additional books that I am planning on reading to kind of get the bingo card blackout. The first is read an entire magazine. So I'm planning on just picking up a new issue of Fire magazine, which is a speculative fiction magazine for Black authors, and they won the Hugo Award last year for semi-pro. So I haven't actually read them, so I think now's a good time. And then I'm also planning on listening to The Way Spring Arrives. This is a collection of Chinese speculative fiction that was written and translated by female and non-binary authors and translators. And I think Rachel Calinati actually read this one recently. So I have the audiobook checked out from the library. And between Faya and The Way Spring Arrives, this will get me the short story prompt as well as the translated prompt. So I think and then the last one is read your favorite author. And for that, I am going with Be the Serpent by Shauna Maguire. This is the 16th book in the October Days series, and it comes out August 30th. I am going to be reading it right away because not only is it the traditional fourth book Wham episode, it is the 4th of such Wham episodes, and based on early reviews as well as what Shauna Maguire has been saying, a lot is going to happen. We will see if one of my pet theories about the identity of someone is true and what that might mean for the series moving forward. I do know that this is going to be ending on a cliffhanger, which I'm not really ready for because that means I have to wait a year to find out what happens, and it's going to be a lot. So, but yeah, with that, I should black out the bingo board. I haven't checked to see whether or not I'll get quests or not, but we'll see what happens with my reading and if I do any swaps. So that is my TBR. Hopefully I can read everything. We will see. So do any of these books sound interesting? Do you have opinions on any of them, or are you participating in any of these TBRs? Please let me know in the comments below, and if you like what you see, please like and subscribe, and I will talk with you later. Bye.